If you saw this t-shirt in a thrift store, you'd swear it was from 1975, but I made it this morning. Here's exactly how. Let's get started. We're inside Photoshop. On the left side of the screen is the design that we'll be recreating on the right. Super vintage, super grungy. It looks like a t-shirt design that's been washed thousands of times. So how exactly do you create this effect? I'm going to show you. Before we dive in, just one note about my canvas size. I'm using 15 inches wide by 20 inches in height at 300 ppi resolution. I would recommend you do something similar. You want to remember that this is a t-shirt design, right? And so if the goal is to print it, it needs to be relatively large on our canvas in order for it to come out high quality. We'll start with sort of this main element, which is the galloping horse silhouette right in the middle of the design. Now this is actually from a full color photo that I found over on Adobe Stock. We're going to be utilizing Adobe Stock for the texture later on in this video as well. Definitely recommend checking it out. It's got everything you need as far as high resolution imagery. So I'm going to hit Command A and that's going to select the entire canvas. Then I'll hit Command C to copy. Back over into our canvas where I'll hit Command V to paste in the photo. Now at the top you'll see as soon as I brought in that photo I was presented with this remove background option, and that's what we're going to use here. If you don't see this bar for some reason, you can always go to Window, Contextual Taskbar, and it'll pop right up for you. With this photo layer highlighted in the layers panel, I'll go ahead and click Remove Background. So it's pretty clean for the most part, but when you zoom in, you can see this sort of ghost silhouette or ghost halo outside of the horse, right? Let me show you how you can get rid of that. So we've got this black and white layer mask thumbnail in our layers panel. If we right click that and go to select and mask, now depending on what your photo is, you're gonna have more or less of this ghost halo showing. In our case, we've got this beautiful horse with its mane, blowing in the wind. There's a lot of hair. And so for that reason, I'm actually going to use refine hair at the top. So I'll click that. Then down here in the bottom right, it says output settings, decontaminate colors. And so I'll check that box. So as you can see, this did a pretty good job of removing that ghost halo. You can use this method for any photo, where someone has curly hair or they have long hair. It's a horse in our case. The other method that I'll typically use is just a combination of increasing feather, contrast, and maybe even bumping shift edge to the left in order to get rid of that halo, and just trying to dial in those settings until it looks the way that I want. So let's rename this from layer 1 to horse. And then we're going to create a new group, and essentially all of our artwork is going to live inside of this group, and we're going to place our grainy, grungy effects on top of the group, and they're going to affect everything that's inside of it. So we'll highlight the horse layer, I'll hit Command G, and that's going to create this new group. I'll call the new group artwork. By the way, throughout this video, you'll hear me say command plus a key for different shortcuts. If you're a PC user, just remember it'll be control for you. So let's get these effects added. I'm going to highlight the artwork group, and then down at the bottom of our layers panel, it says create new fill or adjustment layer. It's sort of this like half circle. I'm going to click that, and the first effect I'm going to add is grain. Now we want to make sure this grain effect ends up outside of our group. So I'm going to drag it up, and then I'm going to right click, create clipping mask. So now it's clipped to this group. We've got our adjustment layer thumbnail right here for the grain. So I'm going to click that. And then for the amount, I'm going to drag it all the way to 100. For the size, I'll go to 80. For roughness, I'll go to 100 as well. And just like we clipped the grain to our artwork group, we'll do the same thing with threshold. So we'll right click, create clipping mask. So now we need to take this horse photo and turn it into what we're seeing on the left, which is more of that silhouette. In order to do that, I'll just double click this horse layer, and then we'll add some different effects. We'll start with a color overlay. 50% gray is where you're going to see kind of the maximum amount of noise and grain. If we bring it down, we're going to get less of it. And so we'd want to retain a little bit of that speckling that we're seeing on the left. So I'm going to stop right here. I'm going to use this as the color. The next thing we'll do is add an inner glow right here. This is where you can have some fun and play around with the opacity, choke, size, and essentially you're going to get different looks depending on what these are set at. I'm going to leave it here and click OK. Now the one thing you might notice is that on the main, as much as we wanted to have all of that detail, it's kind of messing with how the silhouette looks. So I'm going to right click on that layer mask thumbnail, go back to select and mask. Then I'm going to increase the contrast all the way to 100%, and that's going to give us a better silhouette. We'll click OK. So now let's get this text added in here. This is our fictitious band called Follow Sun. This band doesn't exist. I just made it for this tutorial. But apparently they went on some North American tour in 1975. And I guess we went back in time and now we're designing merch for them. Pretty cool. I've already got some Adobe fonts loaded in. So in our toolbar, I'm going to grab the horizontal type tool. And then I'll click into our canvas and type out Follow Sun. We need to make the text larger, so I'm going to select the move tool, and then at the top it says show transform controls. I'll click that. It's going to put a box outside of our text, and then I can just drag the corner like this and size it up. So now we need to apply the same effects and style that we used on the horse to this text. Let me show you a really quick way to do that if you plan on using the same effects over and over in your design, which I'm doing all the time. We're going to double click back into our horse layer, and in the top left of our layer styles panel, it says styles. Click that, and then over on the right, click new style. And we'll just name this inner glow effect, then click OK. And so now it's been saved out. So if I click OK, double click into the Follow Sun text, go to styles. We've got our preset right here. I can click it. Now this is where it gets really fun because just by changing the color overlay, we get a completely different look for our text. So if we want to look a little bit more grungy and grainy, we can make it a darker color like this. That looks cool to me. I'll click OK. Now I'll show you how to make this arch text that you're seeing on the left. So with our Follow Sun text layer selected, we'll grab the horizontal type tool again. And now at the top, we'll see this T with a lightning bolt. That's dynamic text. Click that and you'll have a few different options. We've got block, circle, arch, and bow. We want arch, so we'll click that. So there it made it really big and kind of threw it off of our canvas because of the text size itself. No problem. We'll go back to the move tool. We'll make sure show transform controls is on, size it down. In the original design, the Follow Sun text is underneath the horse. So I'll make sure I drag the Follow Sun text underneath the horse in our layers panel. Now what's really cool about dynamic text, and if you remember doing it the old way, it was kind of a pain. If you change the tracking of any text, let's say from 50 to 0, it doesn't really change the positioning of the text on the arch. So even if I change it to, let's say 200, it still stays in place, creating that perfect arch. For this design, we'll stick with 50. Now for this North American Tour 1975 text, we're just going to duplicate the Follow Sun layer. I'll click the horizontal type tool, go back to our dynamic text options, and this time I'll select bow. We'll bump down this text. We're currently using a font called Forager, definitely has that Western meets hippie vibe. We're going to change this bottom text from Forager to Pence. So I've got all of my Adobe fonts loaded in right now. I'll go to Pence, Classic. And again, the beauty of dynamic text, I can adjust the tracking from 500 to 200 and it still looks really good. I'm going to double click into this North American Tour 1975 text, go to Inner Glow, and I'm going to reduce the size of this glow, and that's going to give me a little bit more distressing, which is what I want. That looks good. I'll click OK. Now let's get this sort of curved bar added in here. For that, we'll go to the ellipse tool. I'm going to hold down the shift key and draw out a circle. We'll double click into this circle or ellipse layer. We'll bring fill opacity to 0%. Then we'll add a stroke. For size, we'll do 100. Position is set to inside, and then color we'll do white. And here's a little hack I like to use. I'm going to put this ellipse layer into a group. So I'm hitting Command G, and then I'll double click into the group, go to our styles, and I'll add the style to the group. And so that allows us to mirror the effect that we've been using. We're going to make this ellipse a little bit larger. Then with the group highlighted at the bottom of the layers panel, we're going to click layer masks. Then we'll grab the rectangular marquee tool from our tools panel. We'll make sure this layer mask thumbnail is selected. We're going to draw out a box like this. Then we're going to fill this with black by going to Edit, Fill, Contents, Foreground Color. As you can see on the left, that is black. We'll click OK. Command D to deselect, and now we've got this nice little accent. Now let's get this little star added. So we'll go back to the ellipse tool, but this time we're going to hover over it, right click, and go to the star tool. We'll draw out the star here, then we'll reposition it. Now whenever I'm doing these little micro repositions like what you're seeing here, I'll actually hold down the shift key and just use the arrows on my keyboard, and that allows me to just bump it around to where it needs to be. That looks good. We'll double click into our star layer, go to styles, click our preset. Now this is why experimentation is key, because if we go into Inner Glow on this star and change the range from 50% to 100, It basically blows out the entire star and it makes it look less like a silhouette with like an outline, and it actually looks super worn down as if it's been, through the wash thousands of times. Definitely has that more authentically vintage look. In fact, I think we should do the same thing with the horse, so I'll double click into that, go to inner glow, change the range from 50% to 100. Boom. So now what we're going to do is collapse this artwork group. I'm going to keep this layer highlighted and then hold down the shift key and grab this top layer, the threshold layer, and then hit Command G to put it into a new group. Now we are going to use this group, as it says right here, for texture plus color overlay. So let's start with the color overlay. Really simple. We're just going to double click into this group and do a color overlay. And I'll grab this nice sort of cream color that we used in the original design. So now we've got our color set and we can get to the texture. In order to do that, we're going to keep this group highlighted, and down at the bottom of the layers panel, it's this rectangle with the circle that says layer masks. We're going to click that. So I've already got this really nice plastisol texture that I grabbed on Adobe Stock. You want to use something like plastisol or cracked ink when you're making vintage graphics, especially with apparel, because you want it to look authentic, right? So don't search like mud texture or dirt or concrete. We want to use what would authentically make sense for our medium, which is apparel, right? T-shirt designs. And those are printed with ink, and ink gets worn down over time and ends up looking kind of like this. So let's add this to our design. I'm going to hit Command A, that grabs the whole canvas, Command C to copy, back into our design, and then we've got this layer mask highlighted. I'm going to hold down the Option key, click into this layer mask thumbnail, and then hit Command V to paste in our texture. From here, I'll hold the Option key again and do the same thing, clicking this layer mask thumbnail. Now we're outside of the layer mask, and we can just drag this texture right on top of our design. Now this looks pretty good right off the bat, but let me show you how to add some more pockets of distressing. So let's jump back into our layer mask. We've got some heavy distressing here and in the bottom right as well. So I'm going to go over to the tools panel and I'm going to grab the clone stamp tool. And you can make your brush larger or smaller depending on the pocket of distressing, but essentially we are going to clone this section. I'm going to hold down the Option key, click on this part of the texture, hold down the Option key to exit the layer mask, and now I've got this nice pocket of distressing, and I can head over here, add some here, hold down the Option key, grab it again, jump over to any other area that needs more distressing, and just basically do this over and over until I've added as much as I want. So now we're going to crop down the canvas, and I'm going to show you how to make everything a single layer. Because this is a one color print, you probably don't need to send all of these different layers to your printer or your manufacturer. This is going to reduce that file size and make things a whole lot easier. However, by now you should have saved your design about 50 times. You should not only be saving as you go, but definitely be saving before you make any drastic changes, which is what we're about to do. So I'll grab just the right side of the canvas. Then I'll go to Image, Crop, Command D to deselect, and then I'm going to duplicate this group. So I'll hit Command J, then I'll go down to the color fill layer, duplicate that as well, then drag it underneath our group on top. Keep this highlighted, highlight this group, right click, merge layers. Then I'll go to the Magic Wand tool, tolerance is set to 0 at the top, anti-alias and contiguous are not checked. Then I'll grab the cream part of the design and hit Command J to throw all of those selected pixels off the layer. I'll delete the layers that we don't need. We'll rename this from layer 2 to cream, and if you have a specific Pantone, I definitely recommend using that here. I'll go down to the color fill layer, I'll go to layer, new, background from layer, then go to image, trim, top left pixel color, trim away top, bottom, left, right, click OK. So now the artwork file has been reduced down only to the essentials, and you can send it off to print. If you try any of these techniques, just remember these steps or come back anytime you need a refresher. And download Photoshop today so you can create vintage inspired graphics of your own.